I'm going to still admit some people in, and just for a couple quick housekeeping rules. If you could, we didn't want to do this webinar style because we wanted everybody to be able to, Linda and Jim like to interact. And so we wanted you guys to be able to see each other and unmute and ask questions if you have questions. You can also type them in the chat. I'm going to field the chat as they go. So if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat as well. And then if you go to the top right, you should see a little button that says view. And so you can click on speaker view, which will enable you to see Linda and Jim the whole time instead of everybody else, which would have you in gallery view. So hit up and go to speaker view. And then I believe we should be ready to roll in just 1 second. If you guys are, thanks for your patience and getting started. Okay, Linda and Jim, are you guys ready?
Yep, we are ready. Only if we have a bunch of people out there that want to be millionaires.
We do. Raise your virtual hand if you want to be.
Yeah, because the teachers can't appear if the students aren't there, right? Got it. I love it. I see those hands.
Oh, yeah, we got lots of hands raised.
Okay, our tech guy's a little slow over here. I have to wait on him.
Give me a minute.
And I've had several of you have reached out to me. We are recording this. And so if you registered, we will send you a link to the recording in case you want to rewatch it or you want to share it with a friend. Or I know several of you said, I want my partner or my spouse to be on and they can't. So we'll be able to share it with you guys probably tomorrow.
Hey, Dana, can you guys just see the blueprint slide?
Nope, we see it all.
Okay, you see all of it?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second here. There we go. How about now?
Nope, that's perfect. You got it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay.
We'll do moving it like this.
Okay.
All right. So, well, good afternoon. Hopefully we get a lot of great questions today because our goal is to answer the questions that you have. Obviously, you're on this call because you have said, I want to create wealth and passive income. That's important to me. So we want to try to help you figure out a blueprint for that for you specifically, because everybody's blueprint will be a little bit different based on their needs, their age, you know, what vehicle they want to use to build that wealth and passive income. And so be sure and don't be shy about your questions throughout this presentation, because we'll be happy to answer them. And then of course, at the end, we'll allow some time for specific questions also.
And guys, what I really want you to really realize is this is a 25-year journey that Linda and I have been on. And so it's from start to finish. And so we're going to give you the insights of exactly the things that we did on the front end and the things that we probably made mistakes on, and the stuff that we can really help you guys if you decide to want to get on this journey, how you can really go do it. If we can do it, guys, anyone can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't get anything else from this, you'll realize that our plans and our blueprints aren't complicated. You know, we're simple people. We don't take a huge, massive risk that makes us want to have the ability to lose everything, because we have done that at one time and that wasn't fun. And so, yeah, it will be a simple formula. The hard part will be you actually executing
and taking action.
Yeah, which is always hard for all of us. That's all of our hardest part. All right. So we're going to kind of tell you where this is a little bit backwards. We're going to kind of tell you where we ended up. And then in a minute, we're going to tell you where we started. And, you know, sometimes I can read this and not even believe that I'm talking about myself. But reading it really, hopefully will make you realize that two people that started out selling real estate in a small college town with average sales price, 68 to 75,000, eventually getting a business up to 200,000, can actually switch their focus and spend some of their time focusing on building wealth and end up with this. So we make about 1.4 million in Keller Williams profit share program, and I know we have guests on the call today. So the formula I'm going to share when we get to the profit share part is actually the same formula that we use to build a real estate business to over 200 transactions. So just substitute building your profit share or building your business, and that formula will actually still apply to you also. And we now have about 80 single family rental properties. And we'll talk a little bit why we picked single family as our vehicle. We have 28 vacation rentals in Missouri and Texas, 8 commercial buildings that we own businesses in, 6 KW real estate offices, and 1 region, which is the region that we're talking to right now, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. And to be honest with you guys, the main thing you need to get from this is it all started from a really successful real estate business and a real estate team. And that's where all of you are right now. You're building your real estate business and your team.
Guys, if it wasn't for that real estate team that started out, that provided us the cash flow and the means to create a big life, none of this would have ever happened. And so it all started with really getting cleanly focused on building the best career for ourselves in real estate sales that we possibly could.
So I want to start by asking you this question. And I really want your answer in the chat groups, if you would. What would happen if today the financial resources of your business totally disappeared? Gradually and then suddenly, if COVID had not happened the way it happened, in other words, we hadn't been an essential business and business just taken off, but we had been one of those businesses that our income just totally disappeared, what would happen? What would happen in your life if that happened? And that's the question I want you to ask yourself right now, because, in a minute, I'll tell you our story. And that's what woke us up to realize what happens when a gradually and suddenly happens in your life and it jolts you awake. It's not always a pretty picture or fun time in your life. So Dana, if you could kind of read out some of the chats, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. Most just saying they'd be in big trouble financially. Someone said I'd be working at an essential job. I wouldn't lose my house, but I would lose my fun style, have to work multiple jobs. That's a terrifying thought. Husband would have to come out of retirement, would have to get a 9-to-5, have to find something that I don't love to do every day. So lots of similar answers.
Love it. So that's exactly what happened to us. And that's kind of where our journey started. And I always say that the greatest things, the greatest tragedies in your life usually become your greatest blessings if you give them long enough and if you get the lessons from them. And, looking back now, I'm very thankful for what we went through, but when we was going through it at the time, it wasn't very fun. And, I'm surprised our marriage made it. And we, it was just a really rough time. But in the late 80s and early 90s in Texas, the economy crashed, and Jimmy was in the restaurant and nightclub business. And I was in the middle of going to college to try to figure out how do you make more than minimum wage. And all of a sudden we were jolted awake by us selling a business that actually we had to sell it for $600,000 than what we owed against it. So literally, Jimmy, we woke up overnight with $600,000 worth of debt, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And so I went to Linda and I said, wow, I said, I'm in pretty deep trouble. She knew I was in trouble though, because I'd try to stay up as late as I could at night, because at 8:30 in the morning, the bankers were calling and they were wanting money. And so I didn't have any way to give them any money. We sold the business for $600,000 less than what we owed on it. And so, we were in debt big time.
And so as Jimmy came to me, I always like to say, Jimmy and I just celebrated 39 years last week. And, I'm like most wives. I don't wake up every day and say, honey, what do you think I should do? I pretty much do what I think I should do. But I think because it was so overwhelming and I had no concept, I always like to say I was 23 years old. I didn't even know what the word economy meant, much less was it a good one or a bad one. So $600,000 was a number I couldn't even comprehend, to be honest with you. So I think I was so lost. I had to ask Jimmy for his wisdom on, him knowing me the best. And that's always something good to do, is look at the people that know you best when you're kind of stuck and don't have the answers. But I asked him, what do you think I should do? I'm a hard worker, but I haven't found anything other than waitressing and bartending that I can make more than minimum wage for. And so he said to me, a mentor of mine, a Pee Wee football coach that always drove across town each year to pick him up to play Pee Wee football, had told him one time, and I'm not even sure what y'all were talking about, but he told him, hey, if you want to make a lot of money, real estate is the way to do it. And so I have to tell you, Chelsea, can we mute?
Can you guys
I do real quick. Yep, perfect. There you go.
Yeah, so we laughed today because I'm sure I have since found out who that man was, and he was actually a big real estate developer in Dallas, Texas. And I really don't think he was saying to Jimmy, you know what, get a wife, get her to selling houses, you guys will be rich forever. He really meant to tell Jimmy to buy some houses or invest in real estate or develop some. And and I'm real thankful today that Jimmy didn't really know what the message meant, because real estate actually did become a great cash flow vehicle for us. Don't you think, Jim?
Yeah. And, at that particular time, this was actually the sixth business that I'd owned, and all the rest of them had been successful. And I was a young guy, used to walking around with a lot of money in my pocket. I had a lot of cash flow, but I had zero wealth, and I was money illiterate completely. And so, whatever amount of money I had coming in was the amount of money that I had going out.
Jimmy, didn't you say dissipate? What didn't you? Don't y'all call that
It's
dissipate?
called DMD disease, and I don't know if any of you guys are afflicted with it, but it's called a disappearing money disease.
That's it.
If it ever hit my hands, it was poof, it was gone. And so I had no money disciplines whatsoever. I was just good at making money, but I was really good at spending it also.
Yeah, we might even been better at spending than we were making at that time, at that point in our life. So, so I said to Jimmy, I didn't even know a realtor. My family had never owned a home. There wasn't a single family member that I knew that had owned a home. So I didn't know what that even meant. And I didn't know any realtors. So I, said, that sounds good. How do I do that? Right. And to be honest with you, I struggled in the beginning because back then there were companies with no training. You were lucky if you got a week training before you started your real estate career, and that's all you ever got. And that just quite honestly wasn't enough for me. And so Jimmy said, Linda, you've only made $3,000 gross. This is real gross, because I'm spending 15 for you to make 3. This wasn't what I meant by get out there and help me. But someone bought me a ticket to a Mike Ferry event. And I realized that when I got in that room, that if I could get around people, no matter what you want to do in life, no matter what it is, whether it's investing, build your real estate business bigger, build your profit share, whatever it is, guys, if you want to do it, just go find the people who have accomplished it and ask them what to do, and just do what the heck they tell you to do. And so that taught me from that seminar that all I needed to do in life was go search out the people who had actually succeeded. And one of the things Jimmy and I began to seek out is people who didn't get their lives upset when gradually and suddenly happens in life. And so we'll tell you a little bit about the books and the material that we found that helped us the most in a minute. But we realized real quick that what we needed to do was to figure out a way to create freedom of our time, money, and relationships, because we didn't have any of those in the very beginning.
Yeah, and in the beginning of going to that seminar, I got to go to that seminar with Linda by default. She had a friend of hers that was going with her, and that person got out of real estate and got a real job. And so Linda didn't have anybody to go with her. And so I thought I was going to go out to Palm Springs and sit out in the desert and drink margaritas out by the pool while she went to another seminar. But I was blown away whenever I walked into that room. There's 3,000 real estate agents in there. There were some panelists they had up on the board, and they had all these signs that said 50 plus, 100 plus, 150 plus. I had no clue what they were plussing, but they were talking about number of transactions. And so there was a guy on the stage by the name of Tony DeCello, and he was one of the panelists that was up there. And his famous number up there on the stage, I remember it as clear today as I did then, is he made $600,000 out of his real estate sales business. I had no clue that you could make that kind of money in real estate as far as sales goes. And so Linda and I tag team Tony. I mean, as soon as he got off the stage, we met him when he got off the stage. We quizzed him. We took him to dinner. We took him to a movie. We went rollerblading with him. Would have slept in his room if he would have let us that night. And we learned so much from Tony and stuff. But anyway, we came back with really an idea and a concept of what we could do to get these banks paid back. They're kind of off our back a little bit right now, but we still owed the money. And so we had to come up with some solutions to try to do it. And that's when we went back, and Linda had already built a pretty successful real estate team. And I joined her also, and it's gone from there.
Yeah. So that really kind of became our cash flow But, looking back over this journey of building wealth, one of the things that we really feel like that it creates that you're not expecting it to create. Yes, you want freedom of money, but it also gives you freedom of your time and freedom of your relationships. And those would become as important to us as anything else. So when you build wealth, you're actually going to build freedom of your time, freedom of your money, and of your relationships.
And for us, it was really, looking back on it now, it's really our insurance policy for everything else. If we ever went through that situation again where everything went away, the things that we built through building wealth, building tangible and appreciating assets, they're not going to go away.
Yeah. So, but I will warn you, when you just start deciding to build wealth and really go for a big life, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone because, there's this comfy place that we can all get and we can all be complacent. But when you really study people with big lives and who've created wealth, they get out of their comfort zone and they do it a lot. Not that they like it any more than anyone else, but they do. So I want you to kind of think about this today as we talk. If Jimmy and I really could go back and we can literally, and I want you to think about this, think about a time in your life where you made a big commitment. And the reason you knew it was a big commitment is because the minute you made it, you dropped down into this horrible place called courage. And my friend Dan Sullivan, who created this, said the difference between fear and courage is this. Fear is where you just wet your pants based on that commitment you just made. And courage is where you go ahead and do the commitment with the wet pants. And so I'm sure some of you can immediately think of a commitment you made that really took courage. It was really scary and it took courage. And the reason it takes courage is because when we make these kind of commitments in our life, we don't really have the credentials to pull them off, right? If we had the credentials, we'd be back in that cozy, comfy place and we wouldn't need courage. But what happens is because you don't like to be encouraged very long, it's not fun, we very quickly will learn all the credentials we need to learn. And then we get to go to this beautiful place called confidence. And then really all you have to do is spend the rest of your life going back and finding another big commitment, going back to courage, getting those credentials, getting more confidence. In all honesty, that's really, if Jimmy and I look back, we would have that commitment when we hired our first assistant. We'd have that commitment when we turned our business over to run for 20 plus years with someone.
Keller Williams. That was big.
And when we took our team and went to the 7th level and, turned our great successful 200 plus transaction business over to someone who had been in the business less than 6 months, and he ran it for the next 20 years very, very successfully. That took courage, because that was all of our cash flow. When we bought our first investment property and we were still climbing out of $600,000 in debt, that took courage. When we bought a region for Keller Williams, that took courage. When we opened our market center. So I want you to get this, guys, because to me, when I saw this chart, I do a program called Strategic Coaching. When I saw this chart on the wall, I very easily remember all the big commitments that took all that courage. But I also woke up and realized that I had stopped making those kind of commitments. And we went right back to going and finding those big commitments that scared us and started making them again, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
So here, Jimmy, why don't you tell them about what the pain of going through that loss and that debt really made us go try to find answers from other people, because we didn't have the answers inside, or we wouldn't have been those people.
We went on a massive search and journey to learn about money. We wanted to see exactly how money worked and stuff. And so we started reading every book that we could find that had to do with money, from Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Millionaire Next Door, Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon, Wealthy Barber, Thou Shalt Prosper. All these books, we just immersed and read those books. But the book that had probably the biggest influence was Robert Kiyosaki's book, Cash Flow Quadrant. And it explained money a lot differently than I understood money. Back in my early days of making a lot of money and spending a lot of money, I understood that side of the quadrant really, really well. What I didn't understand was passive income. And he explains it this way. He divided it into 4 quadrants, E, S, B, and I. And for y'all that are taking notes and stuff, I want you to put on the left-hand side, the E and S, I want you to put 95%, and I earn the money. And on the right side where the BNI is, I want you to write 5%. And that's people and assets making you money. At that particular time in our life, Linda and I were self-employed real estate agents. So we fell right under the S quadrant. And that means that we were the production, we were the people that drove the production in our office to make money and stuff. And so, that was our deal. And 95% of the population lives and dies on the left-hand side of the quadrant. On the right-hand side of the quadrant are businesses, which are people, and the I is investments, like assets that make you money. We had 0% of our income coming off the right-hand side of the income ladder. So this really put it really clear to me. On that left-hand side that's where I was living in my prior life. And so we needed to try to figure out, how do we get money coming in from the right side of our life? It's pretty much.
Yeah. And the reality is if you're in the real estate business, we're smack dab in the S quadrant. We are self-employed people, deciding how much our income is going to be. And that's where our income is coming from. So we realized when we saw this quadrant in this in his book, that our goal would be over the next so many years to move as much of our income from that to that right side of people making us money or assets making us money as we possibly could.
Yeah.
Or Jimmy, we'll actually share with them what the E, the S, the B, and the I stand for.
Yeah, E is for employee and I is for investor. And the good news about the 4 quadrants, guys, you can become a millionaire in any quadrant.
Yes.
And so it's not saying that you're not going to be wealthy if you're always working on the E and S side. It's just the wealthy side of the equation. The people with the biggest wealth, they make most of their income is generated off the right side of the quadrant. The middle class and the other folks are making their money off the left side of the quadrant.
And here's the thing, we'll give you a text-in number in a little bit for a freedom number worksheet. And I just got off a call earlier this morning with a girl that was, doing a testimonial about how much that freedom number has really changed everything for her. So we'll give you a text-in number, and Dana, you can put it in the text to number 33444, the word freedom number. All together as one word. And really it starts right there for you to do that. But before we move to that, and we'll talk a little bit about when we originally came up with our freedom number. So what I was going to say about your freedom number is it should be as much as you possibly can from B or I or both. That number that you put on that worksheet when you and your significant other do it, the freedom number should come from those two right quadrants.
It should be coming from people making you money or assets making you money.
Yeah.
So the right side's your passive income, the left side's your earned income.
Hey, you guys got a quick question, Linda, on that. And someone wants to know, how long did it take y'all to move to the BNI side to reach financial freedom in your journey?
About 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's interesting is, it took us about that long to get to our freedom number. What's really exciting, guys, because you could tell by that first sheet, we blew past 250,000, which was our first original freedom number. But what's really exciting about all this, guys, is the momentum and the speed. It's like a runaway train. So don't worry as much about what you come up with your first number, because it's the activities. And when you get really, really good at that,
getting on the train.
Yeah, and
then you get the compound effect.
Right. And then it just multiplies like crazy. It's like a runaway train. So that's why I always say start with a number, but the number really becomes irrelevant, because sometimes we get kind of angst around coming up with a number because we feel like, well, it might be the wrong number or we need to change the number. Don't worry about that. The number just gets you in the concept of looking for the opportunities and of making a plan around it.
Before I really read this and studied this book really well, I thought money was one-dimensional. I thought it was how much you make, how much you spend. You've got to have money left over to pay taxes, and then I hope you have something left over to invest. I've never found myself or anyone else that ever had any money to invest looking at it that way. Looking at it as money's really two-dimensional. It's earned income and it's passive income. And so it's just learning how to work on the passive income side.
Yeah. And, this is not a easy habit to keep in mind. So, even Jim and I, we're always looking for things as reminders. I would post things up in front of me to remind us that we need to continue to work on this, because it's really easy to get sidetracked and just work on our real estate business. So I always find things like this that says, based on my calculations, I can retire about 5 years after I die. One of my friends that's a top realtor said, I think it's more like 10, but whatever, So we just need to understand we have to, if we don't decide what our life looks like, in the end, somebody else will, or something else will, and it may not be what we want. So here's something I would definitely put in front of me. And as long as I can't answer yes to this, I know I would get up every day and still work on passive income. But it says, the definition of a wealthy person is when your passive income exceeds the income necessary to fund your lifestyle and provide you freedom of your time and money so that you can do what it is that's important to you. And I always like to say, if you don't like the lifestyle you have right now, then go ahead and say, well, how much money would it take to get the lifestyle I desire or I really want? Because that's really when you know that you're where you need to be.
And this is really where the game started, where we had good earned income on the left-hand side of the quadrant, but we had no passive income on the other side, on the right-hand side of the quadrant. So putting things and putting assets in place that threw us off money and start building that passive side to try to get it to a point where it exceeded our earned income. That was a neat deal.
Yeah. And so the other thing we learned in Robert Kiyosaki's book is there's actually only 3 ways to build wealth. And I don't know about you, but we're pretty simple people. So if there'd been 110 ways, we might not have acted on any of them. But if there's only 3, it's real easy to make a choice. And those 3 choices are through the stock market, through real estate investing, or through owning businesses. Now, you have to understand where we were in our life. We had just had a bad experience with one of the businesses. So we didn't have the money, the desire, or the income, or the credit to go back out and start another business. So we looked at all 3 to try to figure out, okay, well, let's look at stocks.
And whenever we really looked at stocks, and number one, didn't have a whole lot of interest in stocks. And number 2, during the dot-com syndrome back in the 90s and late 80s and early 90s, I saw a lot of people go broke in the stock market. I saw that stocks didn't really perform like they, like I thought they probably could. And I just didn't want to learn that.
Well, and here's the thing. Our belief is if you don't really want to learn something and understand it, what your money's going into, then you're really not a true investor. You're really a speculator. And what we really saw, Jimmy, during the late 80s and early 90s is anybody who bet on something that they didn't control or didn't understand or didn't know, they lost everything they had.
Yeah, they were just speculating and betting on somebody else's opinion. And that's what kind of got scary. Now, the stock market today could be a good investment for a lot of people today. The stock market has done well in a lot of different portfolios and everything right now, but in the long run, the stock market's cyclic, and it goes up and it goes down. And in the stock market, the one thing that could happen there that doesn't happen in real estate, you could lose it all. Mm-hmm. Back in the 2000s, during the dot-com area and stuff, we saw people that lost everything in a lot of companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're never going to be able to buy enough to control what those people do to make decisions around that stock. And that was another thing that we saw is if we couldn't, all of us on this call couldn't pull enough money together to own a piece of stock that we would have a say in what happens in that company. And that was scary for us too.
Yeah.
So, so for us, we decided stocks would not be a part of our plan to build wealth and passive income. Just because there were just so many variables in it that really were still out of our control. And remember, we lost a lot of stuff in the crash that happened in the late 80s and early 90s because things were out of our control. So we really wanted to look at stuff that we had control. Anybody can go buy stocks if they think a company is going to do well. But here's the truth. You don't make that money until you sell that stock. And it's not really that passive stream that we knew we could get it once we got real estate properties paid off.
The other thing, if you want to go buy, let's say $100,000 worth of stock, it takes $100,000. If you want to go buy a real estate investment, that's $100,000. You could probably get into that investment for $20,000 and leverage it and have somebody else pay off the rest of the debt.
Yeah. So we're going to dive into the real estate opportunity first for you guys for building wealth, and then we'll move into the other things that we actually chose to do. And I love this quote by Franklin D. Roosevelt. It says, "Real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care is about the safest investment in the world." And I love that. I just, I think we know how far back Roosevelt goes. So this has been tried and true over many, 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 many years.
Well, think about it. In worst case scenario, if you had to go live in it, you could go live in the house that you have.
Yeah. I don't think we can live in 80 of them, but yeah, I know that was our thinking in the first one we bought, right? So we kind of want to talk about our first investment, because we made our first investment, Jimmy, while we were still climbing our way out of that $600,000 in debt.
We hadn't joined Keller Williams yet. We joined Keller Williams in 93, and this was in end of 91, early 92, whenever Linda went on a listing appointment on the north side of Denton, and she came back to the office and what?
Well, first I want to say the reason I found this property is because we had already decided that we wanted to make $250,000 in passive income, and we'd worked it backwards, that we needed to buy 20 properties over the next 5 years.
That's down here.
Yeah. So the reality is that's what made me be able to see the opportunity. If we had not put that goal in place, I don't think I would have gone out to that house and saw, oh my gosh, here's an opportunity.
Yeah. And the seller anyway wanted to sell the house, didn't really want to list it. Wanted to know if Linda had an investor to buy it. And Linda came back to the office and she was all fired up and excited and said, golly, if we could afford to buy this house, we could make $15,000 on a flip on it. It needs some repair work and stuff. And of course, I was the naysayer. I said, well, Linda, that's fine and dandy, but have you checked our credit lately? Have you checked our bank account? We're broke. We don't have good credit. There's no way we can go do this deal. So Linda, she never quits on anything she wants. And so she came up with the idea. She said, I wonder if this builder would actually work with us on this. A guy by the name of Lou Kraft. It's a builder she'd worked with for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reality is I think until you're looking for something, you don't see your answers. Literally, I woke up that morning with Lou Kraft's name on my mind because I knew he trusted me about money and I trusted him. And so sure enough, we went to Lou, and he did three properties with us. One of them we flipped, the other two we kept. And, here's the story. We found the property. I put up my commission for the deal. He made the repairs, got paid, fair wage for doing that. And, we put our commission in. It's all we had to put in, but he was willing to do it with that. He trusted us that much. Sold the property, made $15K. And then almost really quickly after that, an agent in my office came to me and said, Linda, I know you're looking to buy something, and the Resolution Trust Corporation has a property near the college and they want $15,000 for it. So it's exactly the amount of money that Lou and Jimmy and I made.
Yeah. So we took Lou over to that house.
So we're like, don't spend the money.
It was a big fourplex. It hadn't had utilities turned on in 2 years. And it was a big frame home in the historical area. And anyway, we bought it for $15,000. We put the house up as collateral, went to the bank and borrowed $60,000 and converted it into a fourplex. And we all signed on the note together, and we were off and running. Then we found another property that was on the north side of Denton that was similar to this property at a little higher price, and we ended up buying it. And we kept those two together for a few years, and then we split up our partnership, and we gave Lou the option of picking whichever house he wanted. And we still have the one that's close to campus, and it's still there today and pays us about $3,000 a month. It's been paid for 10 years.
Yeah. And the funny story about that first whole property that we had, Jimmy, when it was time for him to be able to get his, what is that called?
Social Security.
Social Security. We looked at that money, and that first rent house pays us more every month now that it's paid off free and clear than Jimmy's whole 40 years of working Social Security check he gets.
Yeah, for working 40 years, that one rental property pays more than Social Security.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's a eye opener. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, no, I certainly didn't. We don't really think about what you're going to get in Social Security, but one rent house pays a whole lot more than that. That's pretty darn
good. Here
Here
was our original retirement plan. This was our freedom number starting out. And it says 240, but it's actually 250, just the number that Linda and I talked about. But we started with a number, and that 250,000, what that really represented was the money that Linda and I would live off of after we either chose or couldn't work anymore in real estate. I was almost 40 years old at the time. And so what we did is we wanted to be able to quit working by the time I was 60. And we wanted to have $250,000 coming into us passively. So to do that, we ran the numbers backwards, and in our market, and at that time, we needed to buy 20 rental properties. We gave ourselves 5 years to buy those 20 rental properties. They needed a cash flow after expense, after debt not after, because they would be free and clear after 15 years. But after they were paid off and free and clear, they would cash flow a minimum of $1,000 a month, would finance them on a 15-year note, and would put 20% down at least, or would put whatever's down, whatever was enough to make them cash flow on a 15-year note.
Yeah. And so, that was kind of, we picked that number out of the air. Now,
if I'd have been 20 or 30 or 35 years old, we might not have done 15 years. We might have done 30 years.
Right. So, so our plan was based on the age of Jimmy, who was trying to get there by 60, and our price range in our area, and how much cash flow they needed to be. So you'd kind of do something similar with yours and figure out whatever your freedom number is, and you're going to do it just through single family houses. How many would you have to have free and clear, and by what age do you want that to happen?
And so we're just going to live happily ever after on our $250,000 a year.
Yeah, yeah. So here's kind of
quick question. So basically, you wouldn't say everything has to be on a 15-year. You would say assess what your age is, sure, and then at what age you want to have those paid off by, and then figure out what. Is that right, Jim?
You have to build whatever strategy works for you and your family on the front end of this deal. Our strategy was that I was 40 years old. We wanted to retire by the time I was 60 years old, and we wanted to have $250,000 coming into us passively by the time we got that. We gave ourselves 5 years to go buy those 20 houses. And so we were dealing with a 20-year time frame, but we financed the houses on 15-year note.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. And so again, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to determine your retirement or lifestyle needs, and then you're going to figure out how do you get out of debt as much as possible so that you have as much extra money as you possibly can. I will tell you, our first people say all the time when we try to talk to them about investing, well, I don't have the money. Well, you heard what we did. We were still in debt, and we went and got Lou to be a partner. The other thing is, we always like to say you're either driving, wearing, eating, sleeping in, or living in your money, right? And so one of the other things that Jimmy and I did early on, because we had that DMD disease, that disappearing money disease, is we had our title company take 15% of every single commission check that we made, put it into an AG Edwards account. And when there was enough money in there, we went out and bought another investment property.
And that is, if you want to get one pearl out of this whole presentation today, that one's it.
Yeah.
Have y'all read the book called Profit First? Who wrote Profit First? Mike?
Well, we can't say his last name because it's too dark. Yeah. So we say Motorboat Mike because he was on mine and Dana's Everything Life and Real Estate podcast. So go back and listen to that interview on Everything Life and Real Estate, because he has a great interview on that.
Remember what I told you about money being one-dimensional, where it's your income, your expenses, you pay taxes, and then hopefully you had something left over to invest. That's the way that investments were taught in the 80s, 90s, mm-hmm. and even in the 2000s to an extent. We were actually doing profit first before we knew what profit first really was.
Yeah.
By taking 15% of the gross right off the top and putting it into a separate money market account that we didn't touch. And every time that account would get $25, $35, $45, or $50,000 built up in that account, we went out and bought a rental property using the same formula in the whole book.
Yeah, and we'll give you that formula in a minute.
Somebody asked, can this still be done if you're already 60?
Yes, absolutely. But all you got to do is shorten that window time. Well, first of all, we're buying them right now, and I'm 60. Jimmy's, how old are you?
69.
69. So absolutely. But here's the deal. Your plan's going to need to be a little bit different if you're trying to create a passive income of a certain amount. You may have to put more down. You may have to pay cash. You're going to have to just reassert your plan based on you being 60. And to be honest with you, now that we're of that age, we actually do more flipping. But again, flipping is just cash flow. So I would just build a plan differently based on how much do I want to come in 15 years? Because I believe, number one, we're all going to live a whole lot longer than we think we are. So 15 years, you're still going to need money and income coming in.
And I tell you what, whenever you're holding property long-term to build wealth, the exciting time happens when you get it paid for.
Yeah.
That's whenever all the fruits of the vine, because basically when you're holding property, especially on a 15-year note, you're not making making very little cash flow. You're lucky to make $200 or $300 a month.
Yeah. And Jimmy and I, we have never touched our investment money. It literally was our insurance plan if everything else went to heck in a handbasket, like it did for us in the early 90s. So, we never intended to touch that money or do anything with it until everything was paid off. And then that money was coming into us. So you can maximize your retirement contributions. Maybe if your spouse or somebody has that kind of stuff, we don't have those things, but we know people who do, and they've done that. And then save for a down payment and reserve fund. And if you're like us and it's hard for you to save money or have money left over, I kept reading books about this automatic savings and you'd never miss the money. And I never believed them, but the truth is you really will never miss the money if you'll just.
And if you do it the other way, you'll never have the money.
Yeah, exactly. And then, figure out who's going to be on your whole team. I like to always say, hey, if you're just getting started and you don't really even know what price range of home to buy in, go ask a great property manager in your area. Where do they wish they had 100 more houses to rent right now? And whatever that range is, that's the range you pick. That's
your sweet spot.
That's your sweet spot. And then, go to your bank and talk to your banker. We like to use local community banks. For our first houses, we went to the mortgage company because back then you could get, was it 8 or 10? 8 or 10 was the limit. I don't know, about the same now, actually, 8 or 10. So you want to go there first. So those won't count against you against a bank, but the bank will count against you against those. Right. So we went there first.
And the reason why we did that is because you can get fixed rates long-term. When you go to a local community bank, you're going to get a 5-year or a 7-year term loan. They'll amortize it over 15 or 20 years, but it's going to reset at whatever the interest rate is in 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. So put your team around you, figure out who can help you, a CPA, good, knowledgeable people that are used to working with people that invest in real estate. And then if you already own some property, determine if you should upgrade, pull out equity and buy some more, or check your options for refinancing or some options you can look at. So here's kind of our rules when we buy properties that we hold. And this is in our hold book that we wrote a few years ago. Be an investor, not a speculator. And that means you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and you know what you're doing. And also a speculator is someone that comes in there and gets into a deal for zero down. And then the market shifts and all of a sudden they're upside down on the investment and they lose their money. That's how we bought a lot of homes from 2007 to 2012. That was the foreclosure market back at that particular time, whenever you could go out and get an investor loan for zero down. So we always put at least 20 to 30% into every property we buy, or we put enough to make it cash flow on a 15-year note.
Yeah. And if we buy it below market, then we still put enough down. If we buy it 10% below, then we'll still put 20% down. We want that 70 to 30 loan to value ratio. And I want to make a couple more comments on this speculator. The other person that's known as a speculator, who is someone who buys a property, speculating what the appreciation will be. Appreciation should just be the icing on the top. It's a good deal the day you buy it. It's not a good deal based on what you think it's going to do, because you can't see a crystal ball to know that. And then the other speculator is someone who buys for negative cash flow, thinking the market will eventually catch up.
Yeah, and the number one reason people fail in real estate investing is they're over leveraged into a property. They didn't put enough money into the property on the front end to make sure that it's a good deal on the back end. Linda and I always we had a kind of a 70-30 rule where we always tried to be into every property that we owned at least a 70% loan to value rate on every property we bought the day we took ownership of it. That in turn helped us weather every market from the early 90s to present. Either if we went into a property with that type of ownership on the front end, our risk was really, really low.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and cash flow is king. It needed to cash flow at least $150 to $200 every month for us on that 15-year mortgage. You know, you're going to have to not let it be personal, because the numbers are what matter when you're being an investor. You got to learn the magic of leveraging, you know, other people's money, people to do the work, those kinds of things.
The other thing is, you know, whenever you're buying an investment property to pay you money, it's not a deal like going out buying the house that you live in.
Right.
You can get excited about that purchase and everything, but it's got to make sense. The numbers have to work. And so you're looking at investment that's going to give you a fair rate of return on the money that you're putting into that investment.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're going to cultivate great relationships, you know.
Some of our best deals have come from those.
Yeah. Some of the best things from teaching investment classes. Everything that we have in the nightly rental business up in Branson wouldn't have happened without a lady that turned us on to that area that we were teaching an investment class to.
Yeah. So, you know, those relationships really become super valuable. And if you decide to share your knowledge and help other people, several things usually happen. One, there's always people in those rooms that either might do real estate business with you, or they might actually decide they don't want to be an investor anymore, or they want you to do a deal with them. Or in her case, she had short sold 2 properties and could only afford to buy 1. So because we were valid to her, and she knew us and trusted us, and we had, you know, poured into her to, you know, and through teaching and training, when she had that opportunity, we're the ones that she thought of and she came to. And now that's the place where we have 28 vacation rentals right now. So
approximately 8 hours.
One of those things with cultivating relationships, Linda and I have a wide network of people in our areas that know that we buy investment properties. So we go to agents from the Flower Mound area, Denton area, you know, in North Texas. And we always tell the agents they can keep the commission side of the deal. We just want the deal.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them will bring us deals and stuff by spreading our network big. In this market we're in today, guys, you got to have a big network out there of people out there helping you find investment properties.
Yeah. And then, you know, keep learning, because we learn from everybody else that invests and does different things. Just keep learning, because you're going to keep sharpening those skills and get more and more opportunity. And then number 7 for us is super important, is, you know, to give to others, you know, help teach, help other people do what it is that you're doing. You learn so much more, and you become so much more masterful when you try to teach other people how to do what it is you do, and you get back to others. So always be sure that you're giving. I have a friend named Joe Polish, and one of his famous sayings is, life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. And so just be a person that likes to give.
Hey, Linda, someone asked, when you guys first get started, is it best to buy in your local market?
Yeah. Yes. Because, you know, if you think about it, your reach is closer. If something happened, you can get there faster. And we only invest out of our area for 2 reasons. One, we have a great person on the ground in the other location. Well, that's really the only reason, because we wouldn't just go invest in another location without a person that we trusted that would be on our team to look after and take care of and do all that. We've invested in Florida before, because my husband had a cousin who was retiring from the police dispatch, and we decided when she came to visit us over the summer that she'd be pretty darn good at
property management.
And then we only are in Branson because we have a girl that lives there and that's on the ground that takes care of everything.
Yeah.
And then more Jenny or why single dwelling versus apartments, duplexes, or quads?
You know, we picked single family, I think, because we were excited about the retail buyer we knew we could sell it to. But, you know, I think it really has to depend on your strategy.
Yeah. And usually on single family homes, your cash flow is going to be a little bit less. And so when you're buying multi-family or you're buying duplexes or fourplexes, you're going to make most of your money on the cash flow. And so you've got to be sure and have a good cash flow number. They're going to appreciate somewhat slower than a regular single family home is going to appreciate. In those, the appreciation on a fourplex or a duplex really, or a small apartment complex is going to be based on the rents. And so it depends on how much rent you can get in the area that you're in. So there's a lot of different factors. One of the strategies Linda and I had on the front end on buying single family homes was to buy properties that were nice enough that whenever we decided to get rid of those properties, we could sell them to a retail buyer. And so we wouldn't have to, wholesale them to another investor. And so that's where a lot of people get into when they buy lower grade properties and stuff, and they try to sell them. Typically, they have to sell those properties to another investor at a discounted price.
Yeah.
And so we tried to avoid that. And that was just part of our strategy up front.
Yeah. So again, invest in what you know, you understand, and can somewhat control, because outside of this, is where your risk gets higher.
So remember, where is your expertise? It's either in the stock market, in the real estate market, or in the owning business market. There's only 3 ways to build wealth. So you need to figure out which one of those best fits you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one more quick question on this before you move on. Are you guys, and you may talk about this later, are you going to talk about managing them yourselves versus having a property management company?
Yeah, we've done all the above. When the first crash happened in the 90s, I wound up by default being a property manager for a bunch of my sellers that could not afford to sell. And so that was by default. And so I never really treated it as a true successful business. So it was a big headache. So we did that in the beginning, and then we had someone else manage our properties, and they were as bad or worse than we were. And then we eventually sold that property management company, and we now have one single girl that does all of our properties, and she works exclusively for us to do that. She's also has some other roles in other things, companies with us, but
she manages the front end of our 80 properties. She does all the leases, all the tenant communications, all the make readies,
if needed.
if there are evictions, if needed. She does everything on the front end. And then our accounting team on our corporate team does all the back end accounting. They collect all the rents, and they run the P&Ls on each one of the properties, and they do a monthly P&L for the company. We have that company divided into 8 different LLCs that own those.
Yeah, that own all those 80 properties. The other thing I always recommend, if I had it to do over again, and you need a real estate assistant, which everybody should have one of those if you're going to plan on doing some big business and have a life at all, then why don't you have that assistant? Part of their job description is they manage your investment properties, because a big reason we see people get out of the investing business is they get tired of the headache of the properties. And I'm just going to tell you, with 80 properties, we don't have any headache. No, somebody else's headache. And
we have maybe been talked to one tenant in the last, 10 years?
I haven't talked to any.
I've talked to one, I think.
So you just got to find people that what they love doing is handling that as
now
their
a secret
job.
to the management side, guys. If you find a great property management company, you need to keep it, and you need to treat them like gold. But if you don't, and you do them yourself and stuff, one of the things you should do is, number one, either make sure your property management company, or if you're managing them yourself, you inspect the homes twice a year. That means you put into your lease that within 90 days of signing this lease, we're going to do a home inspections, and you're going to agree to it. And within 90 days of the lease expiring, we're going to come in there and we're going to do an inspection of the property. I promise you, if you will do that, your properties will stay in much better condition than you'd ever thought they would. Save you hundreds of thousands of dollars over time.
Jimmy, would you care to share a roundabout salary of assistant of property management, or somebody that's running that?
We're paying her $75,000 a year to do those 80 properties. And
if you're going to hire a property manager, they're going to charge you somewhere between 7 to 10% of the gross
depending
rents.
on if you have a lot of properties, you might be able to get it down to 7 or 8%. If you have 1 or 2 properties, they're going to charge you 10% of the monthly rent. So if you're renting it for $1,500 a month, it'd be $150 a month for property management.
Yeah. So you're going to determine your goal and your criteria for what you need for these investment properties to do, and get your investment team in place, which means your money, your banker, everybody. And then tell everybody that you want to buy properties, because you'll have a bunch of people out there that'll help you find a property because they know you're looking. But if no one knows you're looking, then no one can find properties for you. And then this is a card that has been successful for us for what, 20 plus years.
Yeah.
We used to run it in the newspaper as an ad. Now it's a postcard, but this is what we use to find properties. And Brad, okay, so Brad took over our real estate team about 20 years ago. It was doing about 200 transactions a year. They're doing about 300 transactions a year now. And he's still together. What we do still together with him is buy investment properties. So he'll send out these cards and he'll either get a listing or he'll get us an investment opportunity. And then we kind of just go from there.
Now he'll send out about 4,000 of these cards every other month. And the cost is about $2,000 for him to send those out. And we split it. We have a company called FanVest with him that we share properties with him on. And most of those are flips and a few holds. And then our real estate company, the McKissack Group, pays the other half of that. So we split that cost.
Hey, Jimmy, we can't see the card. Are you showing us one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on here. Do you not see it?
No, we see 7 rules of hold real estate investing.
Really? That's weird. Press.
Okay. Here
because
comes
we see it as a slide. That's weird.
I think it might not be.
There we go.
Can you there you go. Okay, now we got it.
Okay, so it stopped sharing.
I'm having a lot of people ask, people are texting me too, asking at the end, you all are going to give them the opportunity to get a copy of the slides, right?
Yeah, we're going to give them a text in number where they can get the slides. What do you want to put the number?
33444, text the word January.
Yeah, it's they text to the number 33444, the word January. I said, why didn't you pick a month that wasn't hard to spell? How about
Like
March? How
I'm,
about March?
So what is that again?
I'm testing some intelligence.
He said he's testing intelligence because I looked at it first thing and thought, Press, why'd you pick January? I wouldn't even be able to spell January probably.
All right, perfect. I put that in the chat too. So remember, you can text, the number is always 33444. The words just change. So you can text freedom number to get that worksheet or January to get the slide deck.
Yep. Thanks for thinking about that, Dana.
Can y'all see that?
Yeah. So can you see this now?
Yeah, we see the one that has the front and the back.
Okay, let's do the next one.
Okay. Okay. Remind me to tell you something. Just thought of something. Okay. So this is kind of what the full page looks like if we run it full page.
That's a flyer that he uses.
Yeah. And he emails out the flyers or puts them in an ad or something.
Do you all think, I've heard this from other people, that they need to be just as basic and simple as possible, like nothing fancy. I mean, those look like really just spot on, I think, what they should look like, you know?
Yeah. And for years, to be honest with you, they weren't even color at all. They were actually just black, kind of black and white stuff.
I'm telling you, looking at that, it looks too wordy for me, but it works.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets good results of these, and he'll list probably 60, he'll attribute 10 listings a year that'll come off of these postcards just for the team.
He should have to reimburse us.
And then he will, he should reimburse us on the other deals too.
I'm talking about the cost.
And then we'll actually buy, we bought 8 properties so far this year or last year.
Yeah.
So
they work for that. So you want to talk about vacation rentals, Jimmy?
yeah, so we got into the vacation rental business up in Branson, Missouri about 8 years ago. We bought our first little cabin up there that was referred to us. You want to go to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. And so these are just some points you need to think about. You know, right now the vacation rental market's hot. You know, it's probably one of the most talked about things that are in the marketplace today. You know, with people not wanting to fly anywhere, they're wanting locations they can drive to. They're wanting experiences they can go experience at different places. The vacation rental market's kind of gone crazy. And so if you decide you want to get into that business, some of the few things that we have found that you need to think about is you need to pick a place that you like and you enjoy and you'd want to spend some time there. And then if you hire a property management company, you will likely not make a profit on that particular property. That's the reason I'm saying, you know, you may have somebody that helps pay for some of your expenses of going to that area. But if you're figuring on buying a single vacation rental into an area and actually make a profit out of it, it's going to be really, really hard to do if you don't control the management. If you live in a location where you can self-manage and you can make a far greater return than annual rentals. So if your area, like for instance, my nephew, he's got a house and then he's got a house behind his house. And he rents that house out for $150 to $200 a night out there. And it's a little 1-bedroom efficiency with a small kitchen. And he's got a pool out in his backyard. But God, he rents the heck out of that thing right now and does really, really well. And he probably adds, anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a month, to his money every month from that little place in the back. So if you live in an area where it's, where you don't have problems with the municipality of saying you can't do them there or something, they're really good to make good money off of. Now up in Branson, the way we got started up there is we started out with a property management company, and we started buying properties up there. And the property manager was actually our partner on the first few properties we bought up there. Eventually, we ended up splitting up our partnership. We took some properties and she took some properties, and then we formed our own management company. And we've had our management company up in Branson now for about 4 years, and that company just became profitable this year.
The management side.
Yeah. And so, that's just it's a neat business to do. Press last night when we were talking about this, he said, Dad, you know what I think would be a great value for the people on this call today? He said, why don't you run a comparison on a vacation rental pro forma to a annual rental pro forma? And so I said, sure. And so most successful people in the business create an experience for the guests. That creates repeat business. Our cabins up in Branson are almost like timeshares. We've got people that have come back year after year, the same week after week to the same cabin and stuff. And it's because we really create a really unique experience. Linda does a great job of decorating them on the inside. It's got top-notch furniture. The beds are high quality with great, our sheets are as good as anything you get at the Ritz-Carlton. These things, they're really, really nice, and the guests just keep coming back for that reason.
Yeah, and I would say also another big compliment we get a lot of compliments about our beds. We get compliments about our kitchens being very well stocked. Jimmy's a chef from owning restaurants, and so he really is picky about what kind of stuff is in the kitchen. And I'm picky about the beds. And then we decorate them very uniquely with just great outdoor pictures and things that would make it feel like and real high quality old hickory type furniture, so that when you walk into them, because a lot of vacation rentals, here's what I noticed, they actually they just leave old crappy furniture in there. They buy the vacation rental and it's got the crappy furniture and they just keep it. We never keep the people's furniture when we buy their cabin. I've went and negotiated wholesale prices from everybody because we do enough volume. And I just think that really makes a difference, because if you listen a lot about vacation rentals, people want experiences. We're all out after great experiences. And then the other comment I hear that we get a lot is that our management team, they're clean, and our management team is very responsive.
Yeah, the number one complaint in the nightly rental business is lack of communication from the host. And so you really have to be able to communicate with the people. And whenever you buy one that's a single family home in an area that you don't control the management of, you're at the mercy of the management company. And so you got to make sure whoever you pick as a manager for your cabins and stuff can take care of the guest needs and everything very, very quickly. You'll have everything from the remote control on the TV won't work, the air conditioner goes out,
can't get the door unlocked.
Yeah, the door won't unlock. You'll have all kinds of unique things that happen that you have to respond to very quickly. And the vacation rental business is a very, very labor intensive business. There's a lot of moving parts there. So up there, our team looks like we have an on-site property manager. She has 2 maintenance people that work directly for her. She's got 4 different cleaning crews. There are subcontractors up there that go in and clean. And then we have a person that does all the bookings online. So Dana, put into the chat deal the website Branson Vacation Retreats .com.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
BransonVacationRetreats.com. So you can get an example of what it looks like if you were interested in setting up your own website and stuff, because you can do everything off that website, from booking it to seeing everything, to seeing the amenities around there, to seeing what Branson has to offer, all that kind of stuff. It's BransonVacationRetreats.com.
And you can kind of see the insides. I always like to say, how can I dip my toe in something without diving all in? How can I dip my toe in something? And one of the things that we did a few years ago is we had bought a ranch outside of, like 25 minutes from where we live. And we just weren't having the time to go there that much. And so we turned both of those houses, it had 2 houses. We turned both of those houses into a vacation rental. And so just thinking through, if you have a place out somewhere, or you have something where you can try locally, as long as the municipalities will let you do it, or you have a little, like Jimmy said, a little place somewhere on your property, or you have a farm, or you have something, it's a great place to dip your toe in the water with this stuff and kind of see what it's like before you dive all in as a full-fledged business, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And, in most vacation rentals, people want, most successful people in the business create an experience for their guests. For instance, in all of our cabins, we have giant teddy bears.
Yeah.
And these kids love these giant teddy bears in all our cabins. We have guest books in there, so the guest fills out a review and everything whenever they leave. And 80% of the time they'll be talking about that big bear in there. So just doing something a little unique and a little bit different. And then we have little bears with our name on them and stuff that we give to the kids as a gift whenever they come and stuff. And 90% of our rentals up in that area go to families.
Yeah.
And so it's bigger families that have a place and they can do their own cooking there and that type of thing. And
yeah, and I would say the hot tubs is another thing that people bring up a lot. They love hot tubs. We just added them to our ranch because we had a pool on one of the properties in the ranch, but we didn't have a hot tub. And we added hot tubs because that makes it more viable for the winter time.
Yep.
Hey, doesn't Mel still put those on Airbnb, HomeAway?
Yep. Vacation, VRBO and Airbnb.
And you save a bunch of fees for people that just go to our website and book direct.
What
It's
percentage
a lot
this year?
cheaper.
What
25% of our bookings came in directly from the website.
Yeah, and we have stickers in our cabins that tell them our website so that we can try to drive them more to our website. Because remember, guys, just like we're learning in the real estate business, if you use bolt-on technology, or you give away your business or your people to people like Zillow, they're going to turn and eventually figure out how to try to charge you more or do whatever. So just like that with these rentals, our goal is to get as many as we possibly can that go straight to our website, just like you need to be doing in your real estate business.
So let's do a little comparison with the vacation rental to an annual rental. Can anyone read my scratching?
Not if you can call it out to them.
This is a typical cabin up in Branson, Missouri. This is one that Linda and I have done before. So we paid it cost $250,000 to build the cabin. The lot price for there was $30,000 for the lot, and to furnish the cabin was $20,000. So we had a total of $300,000 into the project. We put $75,000 down, put 25% down, and we financed $225,000 at 4.5% for 15 years. That gave us a note payment of $1,721.23 a month. The assumptions that we made is there's 360 days in a year. So if you were going to go somewhere and do a nightly rental, one of the first things that you would have to do is figure out how many days a month could I actually assume that this property would be occupied. So you need to go to either a property management company that's doing nightly rentals
in that area
or something. But anyway, for Branson, what we've come up with for an occupancy rate is 65%. So that meant is 20 days per month that the cabin's going to rent. So we had to base our pro forma on 20 days a month. The average rent for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bath cabin up in Branson would be around $300 a night. Some parts it would be closer to 4.25. Some other times of the year, during the less seasonal times of the year, it would be less than that, but the average would be around $300 a night. And so we're also assumption is there's going to be a 20% management fee charged. And so if we rented the cabin 20 days at $300 a night, that give us $6,000 a month coming in cash flow. The management fee is 20%, and that comes off the top. And so that's $1,200. And so that gives us $4,800 to have to pay the rest of the expenses. All the other expenses, remember, with a nightly rental, you're going to be paying the utilities, you're going to be paying the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the supplies that you're going to need, everything that's in there. And typically the average on our cabin is about $2,000 a month. So that would give you a net figure of $2,800 a month, and less your debt service of the 17, 21, 23 would give you a cash flow after debt service of about $1,079 a month. So if we turn around and we look at that and we wanted to compare what our rate of return is, and so let's look on the left-hand side over here about after the debt service, you have 1,079 and you multiply it times 12. That's going to give you $12,948. And you divide it by the $300,000 that you've got into it. That's going to give you a 4.3% return on the total investment. Now, most of the time when you have debt on a property, most returns are figured on cash. So what cash on cash means is how much did it cost me to get into the investment? In this case, it was $75,000. And so we would take that 75,000 and we divide it by the 300,000 we have into it. Your cash on cash return would be 17.2%, which means I had $75,000 invested in this. For my money I put up right here, I'm going to make 17.2% on that money based on cash.
Will you pause right there? Because I mean, that's a great number. Will you tell them like what an average number is, or I mean, how great that actually is? Because 17% is a good number.
I'll show you on an annual rental in just a second.
Okay.
And so now, if you're looking at really what is your rate of return on the investment, when you're figuring rate of returns on investments, you have to treat it like cash. There's no debt involved. And so if we look at the property that way, we still got the expenses of the taxes, the insurance and everything. And we still got the management fee up here. And so you're going to take this net figure of 2,800 and multiply it times 12. And that's going to give you $33,600. And you're going to divide that by the $300,000 that you have invested into the property. And that's going to give you 11.2% return on your investment. That's a pretty sweet investment. Where can you go out and make 11.2% on your money right now? It's not a whole lot of places. Okay, let's look at the next one, Linda. Okay, now this is an annual rental. And in this case, we purchased the house for the same purchase price of $300,000. Get that to go up. And
Looks perfect the way it is right now.
It's okay.
okay, and we put $75,000 down on that like we did before. And so we had $225,000. Now, remember on the other one, on the financing, I did that on a 15-year note, not on a 30-year note. This one we did on a 30-year note because I'm assuming that it's a younger person. But anyway, so $225,000 at a lesser interest rate at 4% at 30 years came out to $1,074.18 plus your taxes. Run about, this is in Texas, it's about $600 a month. The insurance is about $200 a month. So your total debt service on this one's $1,874.18. This property rents for $2,500 a month. There's a 10% management fee, and then we have a 10% maintenance vacancy factor that we figure in on all of our properties. So that would be the net dollar down to $2,000 a month. Minus the debt service of $1,874 gives you a cash flow of $125.82. The cash on cash return for that one, if you took $125 times 12, 1,509, and you divided it by the 75,000 you put in, only gives you a 2% return on your cash. Now, on the other side, if we treated it as a cash deal, you still got the $2,500 a month rent. You've got your taxes, insurance, your vacancy. And so by the time you get down here, you get about a $1,200 cash flow. Take your cash flow as 1,200 times 12 is 14.4, and divide it by your 300,000 gives you a 5% return on your investment. Now there, it is a lot of difference on that, but it's the reason people are risking their money on nightly rentals versus annual rentals. But let me tell you the upside on the annual rentals over the nightly rentals. You have predictable appreciation on the annual rentals, and you don't have that on the nightly rentals. If you're in a resort area, everything that you do is going to be valued pretty much like multifamily. So it's going to be really valued on what is the income that that particular property can produce. But I kind of get that. Any questions?
Somebody said, let's see, hold on, it doesn't. Okay, Patrick said it also doesn't show a depreciation and taxes.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Oh, okay, Teresa, if you're doing 10% vacation I don't know what that means, but maintenance, wouldn't it be 250 and not 500? I think it'll change the number, she said.
I think 10% of it's for the management, and then 10% is the maintenance vacancy, which would be, usually you can figure 1 month's rent as the vacancy factor. And then you figure somewhere around a 5% maintenance factor or something in there based on the rents. 250
Okay.
would be close on this. That's the number I would use for that particular property.
Okay, actually, Patrick said property depreciation is what he meant, which is good for taxes, but is a non-cash.
That's not
expense.
figured in here, but you could also include that would be included in your expenses of well, it's not figured into this right here, but when you're doing the P&L, there are some tax advantages that will help you on the annual rentals, the depreciation, the taxes, the insurance, the interest, the mortgage interest, all those are going to be deductibles that you're going to be able to help you out. And if you really understand how depreciation really works, depreciation is free money for you as an investor. So if the depreciation factor on this house was, let's say, $2,000 for the year, you could take whatever's income and you're going to take off the depreciation amount that you're not going to be paying tax on, and that's basically free money. That's one of the main reasons why to do real estate investing is to get the tax advantages of the depreciation.
Jimmy, I think it talks about that in that book that I don't know if you're going to give them the books, but was it that you told me and Adam about, is it tax-free wealth? Is that it?
Tax-free wealth. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
couple more questions. When purchasing, what percentage should we be aiming for on an annual rental?
What percentages?
Of what?
I think he means what cash on cash return should they aim for if they keep it as a long-term rental, not as a nightly?
When we did ours, we weren't necessarily holding it up to a certain return. Remember, it just had to qualify with 150 to 200 cash flow.
Okay.
And be paid off in the time frame that we needed.
And in our instance, in our model, we were on a 15-year payout, not a 30-year payout. So we put whatever down we needed to make sure that it would cash flow a minimum of $200 a month.
Okay, so she said they show 5. Is that a good number?
Yeah, that's a good number.
Okay.
Yeah, because your real benefit comes when somebody else is paying off these like a big old piggy bank for you and they're paid off someday.
Yeah. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask you, do you have any rentals for shorter term, like 3 to 6 months at a time, primarily for people between homes or perhaps building a home?
No.
No, we don't. Everything we have is either 12 months.
But you know what we're noticing about our vacation rentals that are in Texas is there are some people actually taking those up when their house.
Yeah.
What happened to what's the one?
Yeah, I mean, we just had a guy that they had a hot water heater blow up in their house, and it did a lot of damage to their house. And so their insurance company rented our annual house for $425 a night.
Wow.
For I think 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. Somebody just asked another question. How do you feel about using an IRA, the money in your IRA to buy rentals, or using for 20% down on rentals?
Use the IRAlending.com website.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, your financial advisor is probably going to see something wrong with it because that's money they're not going to make a commission on. And so, but I think as far as investment goes, I think your rate of return was going to be a lot better on a real estate project than being stuck in there depending on the stock.
Yeah, and we taught this in our Flower Mound KW office years ago, and there was a group of agents and our team leader. They all went together and they started really studying this. And I think there's a website called IRAlending.com that used to be there, may still be there. They use that and they were very successful in doing it.
Perfect. Okay, Ronnie, hopefully that answered your question. Yeah. Sue Parrish said, talk to your financial person about self-directed IRAs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's right.
Yeah, that's good. Any other questions on this, Dana? We're going to move into profit share, which we make about $1.5 million a year on our profit share. So we're going to kind of walk through. But again, for those of you, if you're a guest on our call and you're not with our company, then you just use this very same formula for building your real estate business, because it's exactly the one we use to build a real estate team to over 200 transactions a year and be able to have someone else run it for 20 years and now have a sale purchase price of over $1.1 million to sell that business. So this formula will actually work for you as well if you're not someone who can apply it to our profit share program. That makes sense.
Just one more quick question is, has COVID affected your rentals?
You know, that's a great question. Last year, I was in the panic mode in February. We ended up, we had over 200 cancellations for the whole year.
For the vacation rentals.
For the vacation rentals up in Branson, Missouri. And we were under big panic mode and wondering, wow, this is going to be a tough year. And then come May 1st, it was like the floodgates open. Once people really got off of flying and they were sick of being at home and stuff, having a cabin and stuff was really a safe place for them to go and cocoon with their immediate family. And so we booked up everything, and we stayed booked from May and normally up in Branson, January and February are the off months. We're packed in January and February up there this year. So it's been phenomenal. Now on our annual rentals, we've had about maybe 4 people that are having problems paying their rent. They're late every month, but they're still paying. They haven't stopped paying, and we have to deal with them every month, but it hadn't been a big deal.
Yeah, we had one that lost their job, and our property manager went out and found them one the very same day. So you just got to have people on your team that, are solution based and solution minded, but we didn't. And I think it's because our price range is really out of the range of people that are in the service industry. Our price ranges tend to going to be a little bit more for kind of professionals, really top professionals. So that's something to think about when you're picking your price range too. Now that we've had COVID happen, we'd never had COVID happen before. So we'd never had to think about whose jobs might be missing if something happens.
Yeah. Linda and Jimmy, Josh is sitting here watching, he got 1,300, he's right at 100 that have been affected that haven't paid their rents. He's like a little less than 10%, which has kind of been the average lately, but they're working on, trying to fix that or whatever. Emily asked, what's your average monthly rent rate for all your annual rentals?
For annual rentals, we're probably in the $1,600 to $1,700 a month range now. And they've gone up in the last 4 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of the sweet spot for us and where we live. is about 1,600 or 2,100 in that range.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. I think we're good to move on to profit share.
Okay, at the very end, if you think of questions about either section that we've talked about already, we'll do those again at the end after we finish all of it. So you may think of other questions as we sit here. So let's talk a little bit about profit share. Profit share is just an opportunity that we all have, that every market center in KW that's been sold actually has an opportunity. Well, they've agreed to share up to 48% of their profits back into a big profit share pool for anyone who actually wants to take advantage of it and help Keller Williams grow. And so for us, our lifetime amount that we've made from Keller Williams profit share, which by the way, we could have never made enough money and put away in savings to have this kind of money in it, has been $13,321,626.50. And that's our lifetime number. Our number last month, what was our number?
147,000.
Last month was 147,000. I remember when I just wanted to make 147,000 from my real estate business, and
in a year,
and then yeah, even in a year, and we made about $1.5 million last year, and we'll do somewhere between 1.4 and 1.5 finishing up in December when we get those final numbers. So here's the formula that we actually use. And again, if you're not with us, use this for building a real estate business, or to be honest with you, building your wealth. This is a formula that works for anything you want to build. And it's relationships plus validity plus value over time. And what that means is, who do you want to be a hero to? If you're in KW and you want to build your profit share, then who would you enjoy helping them? Who do you have the validity and that you probably already help them in your market center. You're probably already helping someone in your market center do something. So decide who those relationships are that give you energy, that you love helping, that you could help all day, that kind of gives you a little bit of joy to help those people. And I always say, if you don't know who to pick, in my real estate business, I picked sellers. And the reason I picked sellers is because it was more leverage than buyers. And when I picked my people for building my profit share, I actually picked mega agents, or what we like to call as untouchables, people that when you look out in the marketplace, you look like they don't have any value gaps or any issues. But I happen to know that everybody has a gap that they need help with. And so we just got to find out what that is. So I would say pick a few below your production, a few at your production, and a few above your production. And the reason I would say even above your production is because you have more tools in your toolbox. You have so many job descriptions for assistants at your disposal. You have a career visioning process that can make you millions of dollars if you learn how to use it and hire the right people for your business and your team. You have books at your access. You have stories of people in KW. You have other people in KW who will help you with their validity to build relationships deep. So figure out who you want to be a hero to in whatever you're building. And then the second question you got to ask yourself is, what validity do I need to get that person to open the door to a relationship? Because the reality is people will not open a door and let you drive a relationship deeper with them until they feel like you're valid. And so your validity could be your successes. It could be your failures. It could be even what you need to do tomorrow. I want all of you to think about a time when you were new in the real estate business and you would have given a right arm if someone would have let you go on a listing presentation with them or watch them lead generate or anything. And so all of those things that you are doing in your business or that you need to be doing can become your validity to get someone to help someone else and to help drive that relationship deeper. So validity can be, other people. It can be books and tools that you have access to. There's a lot of things. Here's what I like to say about validity. Everybody has it and nobody thinks they do, but everybody has it. You just haven't learned to figure out what yours is and how to drive your validity deeper. So, and then the next thing you need to do if you're looking to build this is figure out what other people's value gaps are. So if I'm working with a seller, I need to figure out what their, I need to ask great questions to figure out what is their biggest value gap. We always assume it's money, but sometimes it's time for sellers, right? Well, the same thing with an agent. At a given moment, an agent has a different value gap than they might have had a year ago, or they might have 2 years from now. So getting to know those people that you want to build a relationship with and learning how to ask great questions to figure out what those value gaps are super important. We think we're salespeople, and so we think we're paid to have to talk and to know, but really the smarter people actually know great questions to ask people to pull their value gap out so that they can help them self-discover that they're the person that can fill that value gap. So
what are the main value gaps you see around agents?
okay, I'll answer that in just a second. But first, I want to tell you that we're not good enough to make a seller sell, a buyer buy, or an agent join. So we can just take that off the table and not even worry about being the person that sells anybody on anything, because we're not that good. And I'm a pretty darn good salesperson, and even I can't do that. But what we can do is figure out how to get people to self-discover that whatever their value gaps are or whatever they need in life can be fulfilled from my service or joining my company or whatever. And so to answer your question, and the best way to get people to self-discover is three things: great stories that they can see themselves in, and great questions that make someone think, and then also experientially. The best way to do it. So a perfect example of this is years ago when I would try to get a seller to reduce their price, which you guys don't know anything about that in this kind of market, but you will. If you stay in the business long enough, you'll have to learn about that. But what I would do is, rather than try to explain their competition to them, I'd get them in the car and drive them to see some of their competition. That's experientially getting someone to get something rather than you telling them. So great questions that make them think, great stories they can see themselves in, and then great experiential opportunities for them to see what a relationship with you would be like. And so to answer your question, Jimmy, some of the value gaps that I see for agents is they need help around lead generation. They just don't have enough ideas on how to generate opportunities and leads. The other thing I see is their time. If they do really well in the real estate business, they wake up and all of a sudden they don't have a good quality of life, and some ball is dropping. And we like to look at it like this: our personal ball should be glass, and our business ball should be rubber, because it can bounce back. But if we mess up too much and miss too much in our personal lives, we can never get that back. So I see a lot of times they're just out of whack on their time. So how do we get them to get leverage? A lot of agents need help around how to hire. And so if you've got a career visioning process that you need to be doing yourself, why wouldn't you set another agent beside you that you're building a relationship with, and just help them see and understand what that process looks like and help them a little bit along the way. And then the other one I see, Jimmy, is exactly what we're talking about today. Is they've been selling real estate at a high level and doing really well, but they haven't figured out about building wealth. And so helping them along the way on build wealth is another big value gap that we can fill. And then the last one is really this. You just have to, people come on their time. I can't make a seller or a buyer's timeline move up. I can be realistic about when they are and be willing to put the time in. And I can't get an agent's time to move up and when they're going to possibly move to our company either. Only they can decide how long it's going to take. And back to value.
What's the longest book you've ever had?
Oh, the longest person I've ever worked on to join KW is 12 years. And I've got one lady that'll probably beat that. But here's the thing, Jimmy, I'll be in the business now and I'll be here 12 years from now. So I don't really care when they come, because I can't fix that. I can't change it. Well, I do care. I wish they'd come tomorrow, but I don't get to decide that. They do. One thing I want to add on the value, Zig Ziglar probably said it best when he said, the way you get what you want in life is just to wake up and help enough other people get what it is they want. And the key part of that sentence is, what do they want? I can't assume that I know what they want. I can't guess what they want. I can't assume that they should want what I want. I need to ask great questions to really figure out, what do they want right now? What is the gap that they have that my service or my company could help them fill that gap faster and get where they want to go faster. So that's kind of the formula and that's kind of a quick, real quick assessment on it. We do have for those of you that are with KW, we do have a profit share course that's starting right now. And you can text the word to the number 33444, the word McKissack, McKissack, and get more information if you haven't already. We've got a profit share online course you can go through at your own speed, and then we'll do monthly calls for all of you that want to build your profit share. That will walk you along and help you every single month and keep you moving on building that profit share.
They'll own all that material.
And they'll own it. You'll own that material for the rest of your life. And we have some great testimonies of people who've been through this course before and are already using it and getting results. And so we'd love to see you there. If profit share is something that you're decided in 2021, usually something like COVID makes us I think COVID's going to make us do two things. One, our health to be better and our wealth to be better. So for those of you that have this opportunity with KW, you can join us there in the class, and we'd love to help you even more. And so what I want to do in the last little bit of time that we have, number one, if there's any questions around building your profit share or this formula, I'd love to answer those. And then I want to talk just a little bit about everybody creating their freedom number. So Dana, do we have any questions on building their profit share or using this formula if they're not with KW on building their business?
I don't think so, but you're getting some good testimonials and people who are signing up for the course. So that's great.
All right, love it. And I love this formula, and I challenge you to look up and pay attention, because I think if you're building a great business, you're probably using this formula more than you realize. And it's a great formula, again, for anybody to drop into their building their business or to building their real estate team. So I would challenge you, the big thing to do from all of this is to decide, what is my freedom number? And on that sheet, for those of you that have already downloaded, what you see on there is a great question about what we call life's unexpecteds. And if you live long enough, you're going to experience everything. And I do mean everything. And so when you're thinking about that freedom number, I want you to think about your parents, what age they are, how well they've done to take care of themselves. Think about other relatives that may not have had the opportunities that we've had, that may have something. Jimmy and I have figured out over the years, just trusting in the fact that if we work on a number that's going to come to us later, there'll be a reason why we're glad we have that number. And that showed up several times in our life. Once when our son-in-law got cancer at the age of 29 and died at the age of 30. For those 10 and a half months, freedom number and passive income allowed us to go be where we needed to be and wanted to be so badly for about 10 and a half months, with only about 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks back taking care of our business. And so that was a life's unexpected. Another unexpected is a relative who was about to lose their house in their 70s, and they're good people, but at 70 something years old, you don't want to be without a home, and to be able to buy that home and give them a life estate. Those are what we call life's unexpected. So it's hard to think of those 30 years prior. Jimmy and I wouldn't have envisioned any of those. Or maybe you have family members. I have a really good friend that when his mother got ready to go into a retirement home, her quality of life would have been terrible if she had gone in the home that she could afford. So because they had been building wealth and passive income, they were paying $20,000 a month for a 24-hour nurses. And the quality of life that she had those 8 or 10 or months, I mean, it was phenomenal to watch the pictures and hear the stories.
And the happiness of it.
And the happiness that she had, probably happiest part of her life, literally, was that time, because she was loved on and cared for. So I want you to challenge you to really think hard about, life's unexpecteds. How big does that freedom number really need to be for you to just really be able to step into some gaps, or to give to some charities that are near and dear to your heart, or maybe just create life's experiences that would be so fun for you and your grandkids. We've been able to do that, and there's just so much joy in not having to worry, because we got to live off only what we have left. And so I challenge you to do that.
Once we started the habit of figuring out what our freedom number was and worked off that $250,000 number, that $250,000 today has manifested into $5 million a year. That's our freedom number now. And so it's just a matter of you getting started. If you can just come up with a number that works for you, that you guys think that you can go out and achieve and get on the road to building wealth this way, it's going to work great for you.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if I would you to answer this question right now, is I would wake up tomorrow to start building my wealth, and whatever your but is really our questions that we haven't gotten answered for you today, because we want to hear the stories, the success stories. We get them a lot from people as we've shared our message throughout the years, but we love to hear those success stories of, I bought my first house, or I bought 10 houses, or I bought 20 houses. And so, what would keep you from tomorrow deciding and getting busy on accomplishing this for you and your family? That's what I'd love to hear in the chat. I would do this tomorrow, but.
And then, you need to get the courage, to go make some of those huge commitments Linda talked about with the 4 C's, just bite the bullet and stuff. And your biggest antagonistic thing to happen with you on this thing is, it's just your fear of just going in there and doing it, and so just getting over that and making the big commitments, decide on what you want to do and get on the path to building your wealth. You're in an industry that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We are so blessed to be in the real estate industry. You have the ability to go out there and make as much money as you're willing to go out and work for.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reality is, you learn in action. You don't learn in analysis. I see a lot of people that get analysis paralysis, and the truth is you'll learn while you're moving. That's the best way to learn. You'll learn in the middle of the transaction, as long as you don't take super risk and you just follow our formula that it has to be 70 to 30 loan to value ratio. It has to cash flow a certain 150 to 200 or whatever your number is, and it's going to be paid off by a certain time. Then you really, you don't have a ton of risk. You're not taking a ton of risk, and you're going to learn so much more by taking action than you are, just by non-movement. I learn in action is where I actually learn.
The bigger risk is if you don't do this.
Yeah.
The bigger risk is if you're turned 60 years old and you're having to depend on Social Security to support yourself, or something happens and you can't work anymore. That's your biggest risk. So for us, investing was always our insurance policy should, everything else just go away.
Yeah.
Hey, I've asked you all this question before and you really helped me with it. So just in case anybody else may be thinking the same thing, how do you know when, like, say right now the market is so hot and everybody, like, the prices are at the very top, the difference between selling maybe one of your rentals or selling a property while the market's really hot versus just holding on to it through the hot times and the low times?
Well, here's the thing. You always are working on that hold number that you need. And so if you feel confident that you're going to hit that hold number, have enough properties for your holding, it's okay to sell one ever so often. But the truth is, don't sell. And this is what I see people do. They'll sell all of them because the market's so hot. Well, all you did was just give yourself more cash flow, which you should already be getting, right? You still don't have that passive stream, which is what the end goal should be. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. When you go, unless you have that money earmarked to go buy something, I wouldn't sell. I would hold through the market. We've held them through every market from 1992 to now. We've sold off a few properties, and they were problem properties that we didn't realize that they didn't produce the kind of return on the money that we expected them to do because of maintenance issues or because of the age of the house or whatever. And there was a time whenever we went in there and we almost redid our whole portfolio. We bought newer houses, and it was a strategy in a target area, and it's paid off really well doing it that way. And so, if you're going to go, the problem with selling in this market is buying back in this market. If you're just going to sell one of your properties and make good money on it, and then you're going to consume all the money, how did that help you? How did that build any wealth for you?
Yep. Perfect answer. You've got Ronnie said, I'm building my second rental and waiting on that one to be finished and rented. So I know how to buy the next one. Somebody else said I purchased my first rental in 2020. It was scary, but now I know it's possible and that the second one will be easier.
Yes, absolutely. Good for you.
And then someone said, where do y'all get $600 taxes on total debt service? Won't that likely be significantly different state to state?
It is different state to state. That was in Texas. And in Texas, the tax rate is 0.026 per $100,000 worth of valuation. So if you've got $100,000 home, that's $2,600 a year.
Got it.
And so that's a $300,000 house. So you could take 300,000 or multiply that 2,600 times 3 and divide it by 12. And that's what your taxes are.
Oh, Jennifer's, that's very, you just proved Jimmy right. That and Linda, she said that's exactly what I did. Sold both of mine for the profit, and guess what I have to show for it now? Nothing. Now starting from the bottom again. Needed this right now. Thanks.
Well, you're not completely at the bottom because you have knowledge you didn't have before.
Yeah.
And you got money. And you got money.
Yep. Great point. Great point. Tyler, I have 4 rentals now and working to get that to 10. We've been able to house hack 2 of them. I read Hold 4 years ago, and now my rental LLC is Hold LLC.
All right.
It wasn't taken.
What? Dang, we weren't quick enough.
I know, that's right. Oh, Troy, yeah. Oh, I'm glad you're on. Troy said, I've used these strategies to own 12 units and getting ready to close on 2 more. Owe it all to these 2. It works. My aha is that Jimmy was 2 years older than me when he started. Let's see. Would you use funds from a HELOC? Uh-oh, did I go out?
Yeah, you kind of cut out a little bit, Dana.
I'm sorry.
Friends from what?
From a HELOC, from a home equity loan.
Okay.
Yeah, would you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
As long as you're not over leveraged.
Yeah, as long as you're not over leveraged, I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
If you've got a good deal, I mean, you want to find good deals out there. You don't want to. There's a saying in the investment world, you make your money on the buy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Jimmy and Linda,
Yeah.
I hate to hijack it, but that's how I did it. I paid cash for a home remodel and then got a HELOC on my personal residence. And I only bought, just like you guys taught me, I never bought anything that after repair value was going to be more than 70%.
Yeah.
And so I would just buy cash, repair, and then put a mortgage on the property, take all my money back out and do it again.
Yep.
And so I've probably
Great.
on those 12 units, I've probably only spent about 15,000 of my own money.
So what is your rate of return on your investment, your cash on cash?
About 98%.
I love it.
That's awesome. Well,
Good for you.
thanks for being a good student.
Awesome. Love it.
Any
All
other
right.
questions about anything, Dana, as we wrap up? Any ahas or thoughts? Or yeah, I'd love to hear some ahas.
Yeah, that'd be great. Why don't, if you guys don't want to,
Light bulbs. I'd love to hear light bulbs that went off. Right, shiny
Feel
ideas.
feel free to unmute and share a light bulb.
Light bulb moment you had.
Guys, what?
I think they're in the chat. Yeah. I will definitely read Hold after this class. I just added profit share to my 411 as a separate business. Ronnie says focusing on the cash flow after the houses are paid off. When will replay be available? I need my husband to watch this. It'll be by tomorrow, I promise. Tabitha, it's not too late to start.
Nope.
Yep. Working with my brothers to invest in vacation property. Yep. Awesome.
Great. Just remember, take your money off the top. That is the big pearl out of this presentation. Take your money off the top and put it into a separate fund that you can use in your investment fund and learn how to live off of, 80 or 85% of your income.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, hi, Jimmy and Linda, by the way. Jimmy's been helping me out for several years now and mentoring me. And I'd have to say that I've had to raise our freedom number probably 3 times since then. So
Good for you, buddy.
it's been good. Yeah.
That's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, it's good.
I know. I talked
thank
to
you.
Rhonda. I talked to Rhonda and Scott earlier today, and they were like, "Oh, we're just buying something else." I was like, "Oh, great."
How many properties do you own now, Scott?
I've got about 35 to 40 residential and 2 or 3 commercial.
That's awesome.
You rock, buddy.
Way to go.
Way to go. You are an awesome student.
That's great.
You're kind of becoming a master.
Thanks for the help.
Bet.
All right, guys. Well, let's give Linda and Jim a big thank you in the chat, and we appreciate you guys so much.
Thank y'all for being here.
Thank y'all. We want to hear your success stories.
Yep. We'll share the slide or text for the slide deck. We'll send the recording out to everybody who registered. And if you need anything, just let us know. Thanks, Linda and Jim.
Our
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Have a great day.
See you guys.